Today I'd like to welcome Shaista Ali to the podcast. Shaista writes Heart Chambers on Substack, and standing at the threshold of many cultures, she explores our shared humanity by peeling back surface level differences. Her professional background for 2 decades is in strategic marketing consulting, plus on the ground nonprofit work across Africa, Scandinavia, and the UK, which will tie very much into her Saturn placement. So I'm really excited. Shaista has a sense of people's needs before they're expressed, and she loves to meet the unspoken. It ties her to the cosmos. Welcome, Shaista. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Kaitlyn. I'm great. I'm excited to finally get to chat with you. I feel like we've been talking for a while, but we just haven't done this one-on-one like this. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So, today we're going to talk about Saturn and specifically how it relates to Shaista's story throughout her life. Before we jump into the specifics of her story, we're going to talk about Saturn. So, what Saturn represents for everyone. It's usually some sort of challenge or blockage or fear. It's usually based around some sort of fear. Like it's not usually easy to do Saturn. It Some astrologers will talk about it as a life lesson that we're here to learn. It's where we're asked to kind of take responsibility, grow into as well. Saturn is the timekeeper. It wants structure. It's like that part of us that might not be easy in the earlier years, but as we get older, it gets easier, hopefully. So it represents where that biggest lesson is in this lifetime. And it's usually kind of where we bump up against life and we learn to break through it with devotion and dedication. And ideally, it's that area of life that we'll mature into and hopefully master. Sometimes we even are a teacher of it later in life because we've like been working on it for so long, so people will tend to come to us for those types of qualities as well. The Saturn cycle is something we're going to talk about today with Shaista's story. So every 7 years, transiting Saturn will kind of have a conversation with our natal Saturn in our chart. So a lot of times this is the 7 year itch. So I know like most people know what that is. The 7 year itch is kind of like this time where we need to recommit or realign to something different or recommit to the thing that we're here to do. So for Shaista, her Saturn placement is in Earth. So she has Saturn in Virgo. Did you know you had Saturn in Virgo, Shaista?
I didn't. I didn't.
No?
No.
Okay, awesome. This is exciting. So, with Saturn and Virgo, it's an earth element. So, you're here to learn about being in the body, about practicality, stability. So, I'm curious for you, has it been easy for you to take care of like the more practical matters, or is it something that you've had to learn over time, or maybe something you still struggle with?
I do it as it's like I'd rather float in the non-practical and hang out, dreaming. But I wouldn't say it's hard, and I don't know how much of that is just attributed to like my culture and the way that I was raised, and just kind of the like understanding of what it means to just like have to be, on your own 2 feet and things like that. I tend to, I don't gravitate to practical, but
Yeah.
I get it done.
So, like, if you had a choice, you probably that wouldn't be your first choice.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but it
Correct.
sounds like, yeah, with, like, the way that you grew up, your history, your culture, it's kind of something that you've learned throughout your life as well.
Right. It's helped me kind of have a little bit of these like parameters where I just
Mm,
understood early, okay, I can't just totally run off and do like just like fully do what I want and like, follow my dream. There was just this it was like a wrapper that I had of practicality that it feels I'm thankful that it's there. I'm really thankful because it has really given me the path that I've had. But I know that I don't know if I resist it, but it's just something where it's like, oh, a little more of the mundane for me. I like to be a
mhm.
little more excited.
Like, I'm not excited about it, and that's usually how we
Yeah.
feel about Saturn. It's like, like, I'd rather not, but I have to, and
Yeah.
I think with Saturn
It's
in an
there, it's
ascendant.
watching you and you're like, "Okay,"
Yeah, I guess,
yeah.
like yeah, and like you explained too, like, having that wrapper, it's almost as if it sounds like to me like you've kind of had that instilled into you where it's like, "Okay, this is how it's done, how we keep our feet on the ground." With if we go a step further, Saturn and Virgo, so this is learning to be of service, and I have a feeling like this part isn't difficult for you, especially like hearing about the work that you do in the world. So Saturn and Virgo is here to help others in some form. Most importantly, like, helping yourself first
Yes,
so that you
yes,
can kind of like that cliche, like, pour from a full cup rather than an empty one.
absolutely.
So it could show up in like research, practical application of your knowledge in some way. Also, like wellness. Virgo is very much about like health and wellness and like treating the body as a temple, essentially.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you notice those kind of themes in your life, or what's your relationship to service and also service to your body.
Yeah, no, that actually resonates. I do want to be of service, and I'll like feel my best at being of service. I used to think it needed to be something big, like
Mm,
really being out there and helping, in the nonprofit or, just and of course it is that too. But then I think as I've gotten older and as I've, the practicality of balancing life and, good, like keeping a job and, meeting certain milestones, I realized being of service is really just in the everyday of how I'm carrying myself, how I'm interacting with people, how I'm connecting. And it's really just the small interactions where you feel like I can tell someone felt seen in a moment. It could just be like a stranger or someone at the coffee shop, and just little interactions that I walk away feeling really good. Because that's also how it feels for me when someone stops me at the grocery store and says something, and just the kindness of connecting and seeing each other.
mhm.
Sometimes I'm like, that's really how I feel I can be of service, And I think that has been huge for me because I used to think like I have to go achieve something like so tangible and obvious, and you could help help people that are underserved, and um which of course I'm always drawn to those issues of social justice and poverty and things like that. But that's always been really important to me, and I didn't like know the words for it until probably like several years ago. But just even being a young kid, like that was always something, that giving, there's like some kind of giving that makes me feel really good, a giving nature.
Mhm.
And then in regards to wellness in the body, I mean, yes, I think that, being in nature is so key for me. If I like sitting too long and I can't take a walk, I'm like really restless about it. What I eat really matters. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty moderate. I'm not like, I don't have like a regimen, but it's more just, I pay attention to know, like, okay, this is nutritious for me. It doesn't mean I
Yeah.
don't have sweets or drink or, things like that. But it's just, I have that mindset where I pay attention.
And you mentioned too, like talking about being of service, and you mentioned like as a kid, you kind of felt this way of like wanting to
Yeah.
serve. I wonder if you can remember, and I know like it's a while ago, but do you remember a moment when you were a kid where you felt like, oh, I like what was that feeling? What was it like?
I watched my parents a lot too. And just like, my mom has such a generous heart.
Mm.
And there's so many things, right? Like where, just at the red light, like she'll always like dig in her purse and give something. And it's not this like big obvious things. Like it's just very natural for her. And I've noticed how those things now feed me and how I operate. And then I think there were also, my parents were immigrants. They had immigrated from India in the early 70s. My dad was here doing his graduate studies. And then, once they got married, she came over. But I think within that community too, there was so much sharing and helping. because they
Mhm.
really were in this together in like a new land. And just the way that I think I witnessed how my parents' friends like show up for each other and support. There, that always felt so good. Like it's
Yeah,
always like as a little kid, I'm just on the side, but I'd be like beaming. And I think it's because I would watch how fulfilled they all were just interacting in that way.
that's beautiful, and I love that feeling of, like, watching and observing and seeing it
Mm.
happening, the care happening, and you are just
Yeah.
kind of, like, absorbing that, right?
Right. Right.
It's really cool because I'm looking at your chart as well, and Saturn is in Virgo. For those listening who do know a little bit of astrology, the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. So I'm looking at your Mercury in Pisces, and like I know you said this as well, but like you just kind of can sense the vibes in the room too, and you
Yeah.
know what others are feeling. You can sense, like, probably what others might need, and the way that you were even explaining just, like, being that person in the coffee shop that spends a little extra attention to, like, make someone's day better, I feel like that's also that Pisces energy too, where it's just like,
Mm.
"Okay, I want" it makes me feel good to make other people feel good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I lived in New York for several years after, just, when I was young, and I'm sure we can get into that somewhere in here
Yeah.
in the timeline. But I remember just like walking on the streets and the sidewalks and just like wanting to make eye contact and smile at everyone. And part of
I
it is I
love
grew up
this.
more or less in Texas, and I was like, I'm going to smile at everybody. But those things just really light up my day. Like I just like that connection. And I just
Yeah.
always do think like, I always I'm so curious, and I wonder like what's going on with people and what's happening behind their four walls and what's in their head today and who are they and where do they come from? So I think sometimes it's like I know that people are out there like maybe having a hard day, or maybe whatever is going on with them. And I'm like, oh, it matters to me when someone does that for me, that little
Yeah.
spark. And so that's just those are the little things of seeking that out. That's just something that I find myself doing often.
Oh, I love it. So these are all the beautiful things about Saturn and Virgo, but on the other side of it, like the challenges around Saturn and Virgo is possibly like harshly self-critical
Yeah.
or like perfectionism, wanting to show up in a certain way, or maybe holding
Yeah.
yourself back until things are like exactly the way that you expect them to be. It may be a little bit of like anxiety or burnout even? I wonder if, like, you've ever experienced any of those things?
All of it.
All of
Yeah.
them?
All of
All of the above.
all of it. All of it. All of the above. Absolutely. And I think it's like I think there is some kind of the high standards, at least that's how I've seen it, that I've set for myself, and wanting to present well. In a way, I'm sure there's some level of it of myself, right? Of like my own worth and things like that. But also, I've always like felt that I want to make it easy for others too,
Mm,
and kind of just like, so if everything is like perfect and good, like then it's easy for someone else. Or if they're stepping into my home and, everything's clean and there's like food, right? Like it's always more, there's a level of me in it, and there's a level of I, I'm used to making things easy for others, right?
yeah,
Um, but that absolutely brings on anxiety and burnout because it's just not sustainable. It's a lot.
yeah,
It's too much, and I think it gets that energy is so it can feel frantic in the sense of like you're up against like time and other things going on, and so and once you do it that way, like it's like, oh, now I have to
like,
consistently be
that's the
that way, right?
standard.
That's the
Yeah.
standard, and that is hard. And I think, of course, as you get
Mm,
older, and I have two children, and I mean, there's just no way. Like, there's no way I can keep that up. And I think
yeah,
that's something I've had to learn. For sure, is to, I used to say like sometimes when I'd be thinking of a party or planning like or hosting something, the funnest part is like for me the planning of it and the anticipating, but it's somewhere by the time that it's happening and people are right. Like I have nothing to give. And I almost feel like, oh, that's not how I wanted to host, or that's not the energy. Like it didn't land. Like everything looked nice, but I'm just so wiped that I don't have the
Mm.
energy to like be there in the room. And, and so I've noticed that too, where I've really had to let go to say, okay, it's more about when like the connection and like being together and not about it like being great and perfect. So,
Yeah. And especially like that part of you just walking down New York and like smiling at everyone and wanting to connect with people in the coffee shop and the grocery store. It's like I could imagine that that's challenging when like practicality planning, all of those things are probably
right.
really fun, right? Like you said, that Saturn and Virgo, but then it's like the connection is what fills you up
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah.
Was there a moment in your life that really like that you felt yourself depleted in that way or maybe like unable to keep going?
I mean, there might have been a couple of moments, but I think that like the most, following the definition of burnout was really like career related, family related,
Mhm.
um, coming after COVID, where it had been building for some time, but the demands of work and, just the nature of just how insane and stressful and kind of soul sucking some of that corporate work had become. um, that was taking a toll, and then having I have two kids. My son is 12, my daughter is 9, and at just certain ages, whatever ages they were at the time, and the needs they were having, and certain struggles. My son, he had some language challenges and some learning differences and stuff that we diagnosed when he was 5, like formally. But as a mom, I was in it and feeling that when he was like in 3 and 4,
Yeah.
and he's doing great and he's wonderful. But like at the time when I'm speaking of burnout, when something's not right, like okay, this school environment or something is just not. He's not thriving here, and now as a parent, you have to kind of think about, okay, how do we do our best within our means to position and create an environment that's best for him. So there was a lot of that parental pressure that was happening with work, and then not feeling really like supported in the emotional labor of raising kids and home and all of that. And that that really was a burnout. I mean, I was just like dipping, like I don't even
Mhm.
know what kind of employee I was, and I was just following the tailwind, waiting to get laid off, to be honest, which
Yeah.
I did, and it was a blessing. But I was, very much like, okay, I have to quit. But again, the practicality of like, well, what is that really going to mean? Even if I just walk away and quit, like, is there a way I can navigate this? Because I know some layoffs are coming, things like that. And then my oldest brother, who has passed, he was diagnosed with ALS. And I think some of that, like with everything I'm talking about, I also have a big family, and like everyone's calling all the time. And it's like someone's arguing with someone and they want to tell me. And there's just that level of being available and being
Mm.
in every conversation for every family member. I was like, I cannot be this person anymore. And as much as, we like love each other, like those dynamics needed to be reset, because I couldn't provide, like I couldn't provide in that way. I had no energy, no capacity. And so, yeah, that was absolutely burnout. I mean, I slept a lot, and I do think, there was a little bit of like, what's going on with her? When is she going to snap out of it? And it was like, I just kept listening to my body,
Mm.
until yeah, it really washed over and passed. But it took a long time. Like I mean, I'm talking over a year for sure, maybe a year and a half,
Yeah.
where I felt it just like still in my body. Mm.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Shaista. I'm sure like people listening can definitely relate to that. And I think with Saturn in Virgo, you said it perfectly. It's like I just listened to my body. I had to listen to my body. And I
Yeah.
think like with Saturn and Virgo, that is what you, you keep coming back to, right? It's like the body. It's creating the routines that are sustainable.
Mhm.
It's yeah, finding, I'll say God, but, like, whichever God you believe
Yeah.
in, if you do, it's, like, finding that in the mundane as well. It's, like,
Yes.
finding just, like, you the juice is, like, in the daily routine. It's in
Yes.
how we take care of our body. It's in how we, like, sweep the floor. It's in, like, how
Yeah.
much we have on our plate, and like you were saying too, that just the emotional labor, the mental, like,
Yeah.
everything, and just being there for everyone all of the time, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I have to be there for myself first. To go into these dates a little bit,
Yeah.
the one that I'm really thinking about is the Saturn return. I wonder if you remember what was going on around 2008 or 2009?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah?
I do. So I even wrote in my notes like this is I put sort of rock bottom
Wow.
because it was a hard period. It was really hard period. That was the time the early part of '08, end of '07, early part of '08 was when I was in Africa and the other countries doing some of that nonprofit work, and it was I had sought that out for like a good 2 years. I was just like wanted to do it. I had all these ideas about how great it was going to feel to be like amongst locals and just like give back. And I was doing it through a program that my company offered, but it was a very like specific. Like, you had to apply, you had to be a certain like high performing. It was a very like niche
Wow.
type of program, and honestly, like many people don't even know about it. But it was so hard, Caitlin. It was so hard. It was essentially, it was a small team, a two-person team, and then we were working with Save the Children as our client, and then we were more or less out on the outskirts of London, and then we went into the field in different countries. But this two-person team, like myself and my boss, we just really struggled. Like I just did, like we had the energy was so tense for me, and I don't really experience that with a lot of people. Like I tend to get along. Like there might be every now and then like a hard supervisor or leader, and there's, but I don't. But I was with this person like physically in these settings, traveling, and we were together all the time, right? And even in our downtime, like he wanted to catch dinner, and I didn't feel like I could say no, but like all I want is to like run off and be like alone in the hostel and have my own little space to like zone out. But it was just tough, and for whatever reason, that was just a really really hard time for me in that project. And I think a lot of it had to do with how much I had built it up too. I mean, there are beautiful moments. I'm so thankful for like going and stretching myself, and there's just amazing. I know how much growth I got from it, but it was like I had this like ideal, vision, and I think sometimes when that comes crashing down, that's really tough. In the background, and I was like thankfully had sublet my New York apartment, but I had like taken a huge pay cut to do the work. I mean, and so I was living off like a stipend. Financially, I was pretty strapped, right? It was
Yeah.
that was in play. I knew I would be okay and like get by. Like it wasn't uh, that heavy, but uh, it was tight. And then in the background, there was a relationship, my college first love relationship, that was over, but yet like still attached. Like there was a lot of
Mm.
like I don't know if it was even residue. It was more than that, but there was still some kind of attachment in play that at least I carried that a little bit, and then at the same time I was starting a new relationship, which would go on to be my husband, and I felt really just like just I didn't know where I was. Like I was very
Mm.
stretched. Like I was neither here nor there. Like I wasn't really ready to be in this relationship, but I knew that I needed to. Like I knew I was like, hey, this guy is giving me stability, and he's like
Mm.
emotionally mature and caring for me, and I'm not really reciprocating here, but like again, maybe the practical hat a little bit where I was like, I can tell this is good. Like I know
Yeah.
this is good for me. Um and just really having to move toward that. But yet, I don't know if it's like it wasn't not being ready. It's just there was something that didn't flow like as well for me. I knew it was right, but I think I just still was just tangled in a lot of ways. And so at that early part of '08, finally, like I had some communication with my old relationship that was we really just it really stopped. And
Mm.
it was very like tainted at the end. We really had just like drove it into the ground. And so
Mhm.
it wasn't really, I don't feel like it represented everything that we had shared, but it had just gotten to that point. And there was such a relief too for me because I think I had been already dealing with the loss of it for years. And it was just really that it was just sitting with me, like it was weighing me down. And so then finally, when it was like the cut was there, it was like
Mhm.
for me, it was relief, real
Yeah.
relief. And then I was able to kind of veer on to the other relationship. And so it was really hard, but then it like moved in, like I would say somewhere in 2009, it moved into being more in my body,
Yeah.
like my own prioritizing myself and um, choosing me more and more. Like so,
Mhm.
so I see kind of both when you say those timelines.
So,
Yeah.
all of this work stuff, the relationship with your boss abroad, and just, like, it sounds like a lot of that service stuff too, like, I'm gonna extend
Yeah.
myself so that someone else can be comfortable as well.
Yeah.
And looking at your chart too, like, this is all happening in the 7th house of relationships. So hearing
Yeah.
all of this, like, relational stuff, I wonder, like, how that difference felt between, like, um I know you mentioned the relief, but then you had met your husband, right? I
Yeah.
wonder if, like, in meeting your husband, that kind of helped you get more in touch with your body, or would you say that you got in touch with your body before meeting your husband?
I definitely was in touch before.
Yeah.
Absolutely was. I think so much of my identity got, or my worth and everything got wrapped into that without really being conscious of it. And then, but thankfully I was like in this new setting with new people, making new friends. And, I was like, I was like, I knew this was saving me. Where it was hard as hell because you feel so lonely. Like nobody knows like all this like background you're coming with. But,
Yeah.
it really gave me a chance to like be new and all of that. So somewhere though, I think that that pull that I was having with him, where it's like he still wants me, is it still happening? Like that. It was depleting me and draining me in a way where I was outside of my body, I guess is what I'm trying to explain, right? And so that
Yeah.
kind of like anxiety and everything that I was feeling in that in between, I had come out of my body. It was like,
Mhm.
I was and even being in the new setting, like I'm sure right, where it's like when I
Yeah.
was abroad and I was going to different time zones, like where my body was constantly delayed, and like there was a lag of, you're just like going through the movements, and
Mhm.
you're just doing it, but you're not really grounded. And so that in between, I was very much out of my body. And so I think in the relief, it gave that exhale that I got when things ended, it gave me a chance to like come back and be a little
Yeah.
bit more like, okay, here I am again. And how am I going to step now? You know?
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up, Shaista. It's like in during that Saturn return when Saturn was back in Virgo, it's like it sounds like you were very ungrounded, like physically, emotionally, like a lot of
Right.
things were just like you were plucked up and like put in this new place. And yeah, like you were saying too, it's just like it's really hard when you're traveling and you're in a new place and you're like trying to
Yeah.
meet new people and you don't have the familiar things
Yeah.
around you that you're so used to. And like with that Saturn lesson, it's like I wonder if you did find ways to ground in those situations. Like there any routine that you were able to build, or was there anything that you kind of
Yeah.
held on to in those moments?
I don't
Or
think
no?
so. And I think that's why, like, when I wrote Sword of Rock Bottom, in New York, it was like it was just the culture of like working hard and happy hours and like just socializing, going out to drink, which has never been my thing. I kind of did it in that era just to be in it, and and it was fun and we had great memories, but like it was never really my thing. Like it wasn't really for me, and it always uh, took a toll on my body. Like I didn't feel good. Like I knew that very intuitively. Like where some people, I'm like, oh my god, how are they so normal the next day? And I'm just like, I cannot function, right? And it was like it'd be like two drink. It wasn't even a lot or something, right? But it just really affects me. But the reason I'm saying that is I think be like in New York before going off to this international project, like I was kind of living in that way. And then in the international project, I never got a routine. If anything, I just like fell into like a little bit of a victim mode, right? And it'd get dark really early. It was freezing, things like that. Like when we were at least in, I was in like Norway, Sweden, and the UK, and this was like January, February, it's cold, and I was
Wow.
like depressed. I was like, it's 5 o'clock and it's dark, and so I never
Yeah.
really. So the answer is no. There was no routine, and I think that that is also where like the unmooring comes from of that period comes from that. But
Yeah.
I think moving into '09, very much so, I formed a routine.
That's really cool because, like, usually at the beginning of the Saturn return, we feel it coming, and
Mhm.
then when it's exact, it's like, "Oh shit, like, what's going on?" And then after, so it would have been, like, mid-2009, and then you explain, like, feeling a little bit more grounded. When did you come
Yeah.
back from that trip? Do
From
you
that
remember?
trip, I came back, maybe spring of '08.
Okay.
So yeah, so what I'm describing is like the tough part was in that when you is like beginning of 2008, and
Yeah.
then the recovery and kind of the figuring out, like how to step now, and then yeah, for sure in '09, and because then I was dating my would be husband. Like we were in a long distance relationship. He didn't live in New York, and so it was I loved it because I did like my thing, and like maintained my little apartment and hung out with my friends and went to work. And then it was also really nice having him to come home to and like have a phone call and like not feeling like just roaming around on the streets, right? And so in that '09 period, I had a nice like grounded routine where I felt
Yeah.
I had something to return to. I was enjoying, I loved, like I was just enjoying being in New York and having all the experiences I was having. So it was quite a shift. It was a shift
Yeah.
from what I was describing in that year.
And in that shift, I wonder, like, with all of what was going on, is there something that you really took away from that time that you still keep with you now?
I take away like saying yes because I think from like a that project perspective, like it was really not what I like imagined it would be. Like how I never thought it'd be like that lonely and like just. But at the same time, I'm so thankful to do it and have stretched myself and have had those certain experiences, like the challenges and the kind of cool, amazing things that I saw and the people that I got to meet in those countries, and like just
Yeah.
the culture, just all of it. And so to me, I know that it's important for me to say yes in like
Mm.
situations where that are hard, that I may like resist, that I may not want to. I'm just kind of like, yeah, let's do it. I put myself out there and I'm better for it. And going forward, it doesn't even have to be that big, right? But it's like the answer is yes. And then I think from a relationship standpoint, my takeaway was also like I have more power than I gave myself. Like I was
Mm.
like to like allow it to like stretch into this like unhealthy, toxic, negative thing where I'm just like waiting for someone to give the final decision. Like that should never have happened, And I think that I did have the power all along. I just didn't know how to exercise it. So there's something there for me too, where I learned in that time, where it was like I knew that we stretched that too long. Like I knew that didn't feel good. I knew that it shouldn't have played out that way. But I
Mhm.
like gave all my power away.
That's a huge lesson, and Saturn and Virgo in the 7th house of relationships, it's like your lesson is to really be discerning in relationships too, and to be able to see like, okay, this is for me or this isn't for me. This is what I'm going to accept. Like talking about those standards again, it's like this is
Mhm.
where those standards do have to be at a certain level in your life
Mhm.
because like you get to choose what you let
Mhm.
in. And
That's
I'm
correct.
also curious because you are kind of going through, or you've just come out of possibly another Saturn cycle, a little Saturn phase from the beginning of 2025. I wonder
Mm.
if you've felt it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know like if I was having, because I think I had seen some things like, oh, um, I don't understand. I didn't understand Saturn, right? But I like my sun sign is Aries, and I think every now and then it was like you might be having a Saturn return, and and I'd see things, but then it was like for people that were like 28, and I was like, that's not me. So I was a
Mhm.
little, I didn't really know. But then when you sent the dates of like, like think about what was happening in early 05, 25, which is right, just a couple months ago, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, yeah, it's real. It's real. Like,
It's
there's some kind
real.
of validation. No, absolutely. So I think I came off, I think I'm coming off of some challenges. But it's like similar themes, but I could really just see like my capacity is no longer the same. And it's not because of depletion necessarily, a little bit, yes, but it's also because I do not allow that anymore. Like it's just
Yes.
something shifted. It just shifted, whereas almost like maybe it feels overnight for my partner, but it's like it just was like building, and there was a point where I was like, this is something that just I can no longer allow. Like it just
Mm.
I do not have the capacity for it, and I don't accept it. Really was the shift for me, and it was so clear. Whereas like there's that, but when you're kind of approaching it or going through it, like the wobbly of like, okay, let's talk about it, and like let's like see if you can understand me and then I can understand you, and you do that whole dance, right? And that's obviously important, but it's like that's exhausting too, right? There's just an
Yeah.
exhausting back and forth, especially if like the foundation of it is really not changing. And so for me, I have that very clear shift, and I felt like in a way the dynamic of my partnership has run its course.
Mm.
And I can see it much more clearly with like love and compassion because of especially what I explained in '08, where it's like
Yeah.
the core that's like, oh, it's run its course, but we're gonna just like both cling and make it horrible. Whereas here I'm like, okay, it's like it's run its course. And that very much I feel where it's like, of course there's a loss in that, but it's you I can recognize that now. I can recognize like, we have like if it's just going to be a loop again, then
Mhm.
that's not serving either of us. Like if we were able to break the loop and elevate it together, if we're just continuing to play out the same things, like then we've learned as much as we can learn. That's how that feels.
Mm.
Or we've learned what we were meant to learn from each other. And then it's like kind of time to focus on like my fulfillment again. And I did, after I had been laid off when I mentioned, so it was like a two-year gap that I had. I was doing a lot of my heart chambers writing at that time too, and I'm still doing it. But I got to really like go deep and enjoy it and focus on it and not have a ton of other pressing things. But yeah, I chose to like interview again, and I just started a new job. I accepted an offer in May, and I just started, and I feel good about it. Just more like putting myself out there again. I had to be really intentional and mindful of, okay, what is my skill set? What can I offer and contribute? What would I like to, and how can I step forward without feeling like, oh, I'm never going back to work again? Because I very much was in that place where I was like, I'm never going to again. I'm just going to be creative and da da da. And like everything's like just like just like these greedy corporations, and and some
Mhm.
level of that is of course still true, but it's that balance again of the practicality
Mm.
of making sure I'm on my 2 feet, independent financially, that I'm always able to like take care of myself, my children, like I have
Yeah.
to think of it that way. And I feel really good about stepping forward and kind of having me at the front and center of it all. Mm.
Wow, that is huge, Shaista. Oh my gosh. Just to break it down, so your Saturn is in the 7th house of relationships, and this most current cycle that you've kind of gone through is the opposition. So Saturn has been going through your 1st house, which is the house of the self. So the balancing between self and relationship is very evident in what you just shared. And also like coming back to the self too. And Pisces is very sensitive. Boundaries, like, boundaries is the word that always comes up when I think about Pisces. It's like, what you said, it's like, I can't accept this
Yeah,
anymore. Like, this is like, I need to choose me. And I think, like, coming back to that lesson of your Saturn where it's just like, I need to be discerning, especially in relationships. Wow. Like, this is kind of that, if we think of Saturn kind of like the moon, like the Saturn return that we talked about from 2008, 2009, that's like the new moon portion of the Saturn. It's the new beginning. And then this phase that you just went through is kind of like the full moon moment where everything is illuminated and it's like, okay, I need to make a decision. We need to make a
yeah,
decision. So,
yeah.
wow, that's
Really relevant. Very relevant.
yeah, I wonder if there's anything else that's coming up for you before we close out. Is there anything you want to share? Any questions?
When is it going to happen again? I want
You have some time. But I will say it so Saturn is in Aries now. So at some point within the next year to 2 years, like, you're going to get hit with your moon, which is also in Aries. I don't know if you knew that. So you have,
Mhm.
your sun in Aries, your moon in Aries. So you are
Oh,
born
actually, I
on
did
a new
know
moon.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
awesome.
knew that. Yeah.
So Saturn's gonna move over those 2 planets too, which usually feels away. And so not only, like, when Saturn's talking to your Saturn, it's gonna hit your moon, which is your emotional body, and then your sun, which is more your identity. So I feel like with what you just shared with your
Mm,
relationship changes, it's like, okay, you're when Saturn hits your moon, you may feel a little bit of, like, restriction, or there might be something like going on emotionally where it's just like a little bit sticky. You might have
mhm.
to come back into the emotional body. I guess like it could be something to look at now. And I think the emotional body is something that we should be communicating with most of the
Yeah,
time, but you may feel some things coming up that feel a little bit restrictive, or there's something that you need to move through. And then when it moves over your sun, it's like just asking yourself, like, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world?
yeah,
How do I want to shine my light? And it just feels like kind of that new beginning, right? It's like, who am
yeah,
I? Who is Shaista?
yeah,
How do I want to show
yeah.
up? How do I feel? Just checking in with yourself through every step of the process.
Very much. Yeah, I feel like I'm at the precipice of something new for myself in regards to how I step forward, how I show up, where I focus, like how I'm going to just be, and some of the comforts and the familiarities of like everything, like our identity that we formed. Like I do feel like there is this, it's easy to stay in it, to stay with that
Mhm.
and that familiarity, and it's much harder to leave it behind. But I can feel this like push for expansion. So it's, like it's exciting and obviously very like challenging at the same time, right? And there's like fear and doubt and all those things that come up. But it's so great to talk to you like holistically in this way, and like looking back and reflecting, because it really shows like how far, like, I've come. How far you've come. When we like are able to reflect and look back, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I see that like every phase of, be it Saturn or whatever it might be, like it just pushes me more and more toward, not pushes, but like guides me more and more toward who I'm supposed to be. And I think that it's been interesting because it continues to look differently than like,
Yeah.
this little image. I think we had talked about briefly that little like image you have when you're 15, your 15-year-old self image. and you're like, it's just like it keeps like shifting further from that. Not like your core, like who you are and that kind of thing, but more just like what you thought things would look like.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, and I've gotten much better, but sometimes it's like, why do I hold myself to that concept? Like I
Mm.
put so much weight on like that little girl who didn't know very much and the concept she created. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's what I check in with sometimes, like 15, 22. There's like certain concepts that were created. And I think maybe those were such early concepts that they like the ones I like look at. But yet intellectually, I know like she didn't know anything,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, she didn't know anything. Oh my gosh. Is there anything you would tell her, like, now, looking back?
I think I tell her just have fun, like have so much fun and not worry too much, like she's like you're protected and you're taken care of, like trust yourself, like be discerning, which
Yeah.
is important for me because I do think that whole like that's important. I think that is very important. I think like maintaining your dignity and your like, there are certain things that are not worth giving away. And I think, but it's like also like have fun. It doesn't have to
Mm.
be like a look and achieve and, like in a way where everything like looks a certain way, appearances wise. And I think for me, the takeaway too, and I've known this for some time, but it continues to show up is like that whole like self first, self
Yeah.
love and self fulfillment. Like again, sounds so simple and obvious, but I think the giving away of myself is something I'm just less willing to do. I want to give and I want to connect, but I'm not going to compromise my own needs.
Mm.
And I think that's continued to be a lesson. Like, and my family relationships and my dynamics and like my phone calls to my mom and my sister, they're like wonderful. They're so great, and
Yeah.
they're not like where it's like, oh, someone's like asking me for something, and so it's like there's these very clear examples of how those shifts really are for the better. It's like just
Mm.
stop playing in that same role of like giving when you don't have it or don't want to, but you feel like you're supposed to. And like, and then it's like you make that shift and you're like, wow, this is like, I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose
Yeah.
anything. And there's times where, yeah, you like have to step out of relationships and things. And, but for so many other relationships, you're like, oh, there's no loss. Like, it's it's a better dynamic now, So
Yeah, and then you allow people to, like, show up in the way that you want to be
exactly.
received as well, and it just
Exactly. Exactly.
oh, I have chills, like, that just gave me chills. I feel like that message to your younger self is exactly like the Saturn lesson. It's like,
Yeah.
have fun, be discerning, just take care of yourself first
Yeah.
too, right? It's like
Yeah.
one of the big lessons of Saturn in Virgo is also, like, living with purpose rather than perfection. I think sometimes like Saturn and Virgo, people can be very hard on themselves too. And I bet like that
Yeah.
younger version of
Yeah.
you, and even still now, I know like we're
Sure.
human, we're all hard on ourselves at times.
Right.
It's like, yeah, just finding that purpose and really serving from a place that feels good rather
Right.
than like sucking the life out of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Shaista, and thank you for
Of
being
course.
here. This was such a
Thank
fun
you, Kate.
conversation.
I
I'm so
know.
glad to like see your face.
I know, and I feel so lucky to have like your like focused attention on me and like I feel really, really privileged. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank
allowing
you.
it.
Thank you for being here.